I promise you, if you are kinder to yourself, it will exude confidence in your presentation. People will feel that. Welcome to the Game of Her Own podcast, a free resource for women who work in the sports and entertainment industry. Each week, we get real and talk about the things that hold us back and how we can overcome them and keep climbing to the top. And the top is however you define it. We talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. Consider this podcast your secret weapon. You will learn from the best in the business and be able to take immediate action with all the advice that you hear. I'm your host, Jahaan Blake, a leadership development coach and consultant. I've worked in sports for 20 years. 15 of those years were spent working for the Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Cubs. After 15 years of working in the front office, I took a leap of faith and I started my own business. Friends, as a Black woman in sports, I know that the industry can take a toll on your confidence and sometimes leave you feeling defeated. Join me each week so I can support you on your journey. I promise you, each week you will feel stronger and more confident than the week before. So let's get started with this week's episode. Whether you are pitching an idea to your boss, delivering a report to your team, or presenting at a conference, presentations are a critical part of many jobs. But presenting can be nerve-wracking, especially when you're speaking to leadership. The stakes feel so high. Honestly, for those of us who are anxious achievers, the stakes feel high all of the time, regardless of who we are presenting to. It's all eyes on you. And for a lot of us, that comes with nerves. So how do you make sure things like anxiety, self-doubt, imposter syndrome don't get in the way of you delivering a great presentation? If you feel this way, do not worry. I have been in your shoes. Let me tell you a quick story. While I was in grad school at Emerson College, I took a public speaking class because I wanted to learn how to master it. I wanted to get rid of the fear, anxiety, and self-doubt I would feel when I was speaking. It was a roadblock that was literally preventing me from reaching my full potential. I was very self-aware of that. So I figured practicing would make me better and I would become comfortable. Well, it was my turn to go to the podium. And I can remember it like it literally just happened a few hours ago. I said a few words and then nothing. Nothing else came out of my mouth. I don't know what happened, but I'm telling you right now, if you wondered if stage fright is real, it is. I couldn't perform. So after feeling so humiliated and having all of my classmates like just staring at me, I put my head down and just kind of walked to my seat. And that walk felt so long. And then no one was saying cringeworthy, but I will say it was 100% cringeworthy. Now, present day, you literally can't keep a microphone out of my hand. I will be the first to raise my hand to lead presentations, trainings, workshops, and of course, my favorite, we're doing right now, podcasts. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about 10 tips that you can implement to start feeling confident when you are public speaking, when you are giving presentations. So how do I know these work? Well, I've tried them and they've worked wonders for me. They have helped me grow into who I am today and the speaker I am today. But I'm only a survey of one. I get that. So I will tell you, over my 20-year career, I have listened to advice from great speakers. I have read countless books and picked up any tips that people are willing to share. You pay $20 to read someone's like journey and story in this 6-hour audiobook, or if you want to read it, whatever, but they tell you so much information. It's fantastic. And so I would take that. I would take what I needed and leave the rest. What I always tell you guys to do. I have taken those tips. I've taken the advice over my 20-year career, and I have helped not only myself, but former employees, and I've helped my clients with these tips. So I know that they work. So are you ready to dive in? All right, Game of Our Own listeners, let's do this. Number 1, outcome. You want to know the outcome to achieve maximum impact. Determine what the desired outcome your audience should walk away with after your presentation. Let me give you some examples. If your boss asked you to develop a pitch for a specific category of sponsors, what are the desired outcomes your audience, potential sponsors, should walk away with? It's super specific. Obviously, you want them to walk away with and become sponsors, but there's something else. What are you trying to achieve? Another example, Super Bowl. My client wanted me to develop a wayfinding training for 200 people. Got it. Okay. So common sense, you have to teach them how to execute wayfinding. But what else? What else is there? Let me understand what you want all 200 people who have never worked at the stadium to understand. What's the outcome? So design a training that equips them with the knowledge of the campus, fan experience or customer service expectations, and something that was very important to the client was what their experience, so what the staff experience was going to be like for them being a part of the NFL team. One more example. I had a client, I worked on what they called the Check Your Blind Spot tour. So I won't go into details what it is, but it is really cool. They wanted me to come up with a training to train staff all over the country, ambassadors all over the country, all these different cities and towns that this bus was stopping at over the course of a year and a half. When I asked my client, describe what the outcome is. What do you want them to walk away with? I want you to equip the staff with the necessary skills and knowledge to successfully represent our brand and effectively engage with customers across the country. Okay, got it. So not only was I able to design a training that was engaging, memorable, and allowed them to understand what they needed to do and what the expectations were, I was also able to come up with tools and resources that they could have on hand. So if they forgot something, whatever the case may be, I was able to design really cool tools and resources for them to have on hand. And my client didn't even ask for that, but I understood the outcomes. I knew how to bring it all to life. So when you understand the outcome and you were really crystal clear, you can do wonders with your presentation, and you can also bake in added value. Number 2, know the audience. Nothing is worse than walking in and being surprised. Now, I'm telling you, I've become very confident in my speaking that there are some times when I don't do my research. And every time when I do my what went well and what didn't, the what didn't is I didn't know my audience. I would have been able to connect with them better had I known who I was presenting to. So if you're presenting to your entire, front office or your entire organization in a, all staff meeting, okay, you know the audience. If you are presenting to leadership, what leaders are going to be in that room? If you're presenting to your peers, what peers are going to be in that room? Same thing with the sponsor example. Just know who is going to be in the room. And if it's somebody that you don't know, if you're working at a big organization, and it's super just like complex and there's people you haven't met before, do your research. Find out who you're going to meet with. Just learn a little bit about them. That will make them less mysterious, less scary, if you will. And it allows you to be able to connect with them. So just know ahead of time who's going to be in that room. And a bonus, know what that room and that setting is going to look like. Number 3, have a plan. Before you start your presentation, make sure you have some sort of outline or structure in mind so that you stay organized and on track. Try not to get too bogged down in the details, but make sure you understand what points you want to cover. If you don't want to be someone who just reads from a piece of paper, hey, I totally understand that. I have an outline right now. Did I write everything down? Absolutely not. I don't work well when I have a fully baked script. If you're somebody who works well with a fully baked script, do it. Do whatever makes you comfortable and makes you feel like you are doing your best, right? You're giving your best presentation. I know for me, once I got over the fear of not having every single word in front of me, I was so much better. And I had to trust myself. So have that plan. And when you're creating your plan, make sure it aligns with the outcomes you want your audience to walk away with. It is so easy to get off track. It's so easy to learn what the outcomes are and then get, working on your presentation. It's a couple of weeks and you lose sight of the outcomes because you start going down this other path. It happens. I'm sure you guys can all think of an example of maybe a time it's happened to you, but you don't intend to do that. You're like, oh yeah, I get it. I'm not going to lose sight of it, but it just happens. You go down a path and you're like, this presentation is amazing. Then you're like, oh wait, I missed the whole point. I went down a path that I thought made sense, but I forgot to cover the points that I was supposed to. So always make sure you go back and say, okay, this presentation, does it align with the outcomes? Number 4, prepare. Now, I know, right? Prepare. Well, that seems easy. Have a plan. That seems easy. But these are things when you start to reflect, you realize I can do that. And that would have helped me. I had just taken the time to prepare. Now, being well prepared will help ensure that you don't feel overwhelmed during the actual presentation. So you want to do things like practice, go on Zoom, record yourself, go in front of a mirror, go in front of your partner and deliver it. I have never had success with that one, but other people have. What I always like to practice on Zoom. If it's something big, I'll practice on Zoom and I will record myself, but I hate staring at myself while I'm talking. So then I make sure I put something on the screen, like, another window or something over it so I don't see myself. Then I go back and watch and it's fine. But like while I'm talking, I hate watching myself because I think I look silly because of my hands. And if you could see my hands right now, you would laugh. I've said this one as a bonus before. Know where your presentation is going to take place. Make sure you go in, look around, figure out where you're going to be seated. If you have the luxury of doing that. Not everyone gets that, but I try so hard. If it's not virtual, obviously if it's virtual, I know exactly where I'm sitting. But if it's in a boardroom, okay, I want to get there 10 minutes early because I want to sit in the middle. I don't want to sit at the head. I want to be conversational with everybody. I want to sit in the exact, in the middle. I'm going to go early and put my stuff down, or I'm going to get there and make sure no one else takes that seat. I want to get familiar with the room if it's a room that I've never been in. So if you're at a conference, pop into the room that you know you're going to be in, get a feel for the room. So when you first get there, when you get there to do the presentation, you are not like, "Ooh, this room is huge. Look at all these seats." And like, "Oh, I can kind of hear people from the other room. That's going to be distracting." Get all those things out of the way ahead of time. So when you get there, you're just like, "Yeah, I know what's happening. I've already coached myself. I already know what I'm going to do. I'm good." Know your material. That's an easy one. But we all too often forget to rehearse and practice, practice, practice so you know your material. This might sound like a vanity tip, but plan your outfit. Plan what your outfit is going to be, not the day of, the day before. Make sure if you are standing, make sure it's comfortable. Okay, I have to stand for an hour and talk. Is this comfortable? Am I going to be cold? If you're like me, I get super hot when I speak. So I need like sleeveless because I sweat. Not that you need to know that about me, but now you do. So there you go. Plan your outfit. If you're going to be on a panel and you're going to be sitting on high chairs. Ooh, nothing is worse than wearing a dress when you're sitting on a high chair and trying an dress that is, above the knee. Nothing too scandalous, but above the knee. And you're like, "Oh, I can't sit. I can't cross my leg. I don't know which way to go." It's awkward. I have been there before, and I'm embarrassed to say recently, I wore it and I was like, what was I thinking? Why didn't I ask what the setting was going to be? Sometimes you get a little busy and it happens. But I had to really, really had to put my water bottle in a certain place. It was not comfortable. And it took away from me being able to deliver what I thought was my best speaking and where I was very comfortable because I was worried about flashing everybody. There, I said it. So make sure you know what your outfit's going to be, what the setting's going to be. If you're sitting, is it tight when you're sitting? Are you going to keep squirming? I would have worn pants had I known when I did the She Believes Summit for US Soccer. I found out where we were going to be sitting, what it looked like. I think I saw renderings or something. I knew that I needed to wear pants because of the way we were going to be situated. So keep that in mind. She Believes Summit, I was so comfortable and all I focused on were the words that were coming out of my mouth and hosting panels and being on panels. And I had so much fun, was not worried about things like the room setting, my clothes, practicing because I was ready to go. Number 5, journal. Now, if you're not a journal person, don't fast forward, stay with me. Don't start multitasking. Journaling will just help you get the nerves out. So now if you don't get nervous, you probably turn this off already. But if you do, right, and if you are like me and you are a high achiever and you also suffer from self-doubt, anxiety, imposter syndrome, one way to get that out of your system is to journal. So if you don't want to call it journaling and you want to call it writing yourself a note in your phone, call it that. It doesn't have to be woo-woo. It's just a way to get all of the things that are swirling around in your head out onto paper. And it helps you relax. It helps enhance your confidence as do all these tips. So just sit and just free write and journal. And if you don't like free writing, free journaling, I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but let's just say that it is. If you don't like that, I have a download. It's called Manage Your Mindset, and it has prompts. It will ask you things. This is designed to help enhance your confidence, to help strengthen your confidence. So download it. It's free. I linked to it in the show notes, jahaanblake.com/mindset. Download it and use that. Use those prompts, and that will help you. Again, get those things that you're worried about, like, oh, what's the worst that can happen? You're just sitting there and thinking about, what if I say the wrong things? What if no one laughs at my joke? What if this makes no sense? What if this, and you just, it swirls. And I think you all know, like, it's just so frustrating for high achievers who are battling their mindset. It can be a struggle. So one of the best ways to tackle that is to journal. Number 6, visualize your success. Visualize success. See yourself doing well. Right? So now you journaled, you got everything out, you feel like you have a clear head. Now you want to start with the positive self-talk, because it will come across in your presentation. I promise you, if you are kinder to yourself, it will exude confidence in your presentation. People will feel that. The positive self-talk has to start early. So you really want to focus on what you're saying to yourself. Like, oh, I'm going to mess up this presentation. I can feel it. You're going to mess up the presentation. So start thinking about what you can say to yourself. I have really prepared for this. I'm a little nervous, I'm a little anxious, but I'm ready and I'm confident in my material. I may make a mistake, but that's okay. I can rebound. Like, just talk to yourself as you would talk to your best friend. So if you're having trouble being nice to yourself, switch your mindset and act like you're talking to your best friend. What would you tell your best friend? Number 7, do not be afraid of silence. Silence is okay. It's okay if you went off on a tangent. I do it all the time. I go off. I'm like, someone will ask me a question and I go down a path and I am into it. And I'm like, shoot, where did I leave off? Sometimes I'll say, I was like, oh, I got so into that. I lost my train of thought. Give me a minute. And like, I will come back to where I was, or I will just take a sip of water while I try to think of where I am. What you don't want to do is, while you're silent, panic about being silent. I just had an aha moment. I think that's what I did when I was at Emerson. Like, I was silent, and then that's all I could think about was being silent. Huh, this is fun. This is like therapy. Thanks, guys. So don't be afraid of the silence. Just own it. Take a minute. Now, don't do what I did at Emerson. Don't stand there for like 10 minutes silent. You don't want to do that. But it's okay if you're silent. Don't freak yourself out like I did and just, I'm quiet. This is awkward. What am I going to do? It's okay. I'm just going to get my train of thought back. It's hard. Presenting isn't easy, especially if you're not reading from a script. If you ever watch, I don't know who watched The Draft, but if you watch Roger Goodell, I don't know if this is a good example for you guys. I don't know how you feel about the commissioner, but like, let's take all controversy aside. He still reads from his notes. Still, like, being a presenter doesn't come naturally to everybody. He's a commissioner of the NFL and he's reading from his cue cards. And I'm talking about things that say, like, he is looking down when he says, and the number 5, draft pick goes to, he is looking down the entire time. And it's just like 1 or 2 sentences. So when you are just going off an outline, it can be nerve-wracking. And sometimes you make a point and they're like, okay, what's next? I want to make sure I hit it. Let me look down real quick. Yes. Okay. Next, I want to talk about, that's okay. It is okay for silence. Don't be afraid of it. Number 8, stick to your daily routine. This is one of my favorite tips that I give to people. I find that when there's something big happening, and I've been there, and it's not your typical day, you're presenting to the board at your organization, you have this big opportunity, and it's your first time, and you're nervous. And so the first thing you want to do is like, I can't work out today. Like, I'm too freaked out about what's going on. If you work out in the morning, right? Or I can't meditate today because I'm all in my head. I can't do yoga. Whatever your morning routine is, stick to what you do before work. So if it's, taking your dog for a really long walk and listening to your favorite podcast called Game of Her Own. I'm just kidding. Am I though? It's okay. Keep doing that. Don't get off your routine, because once you get to work that day, you're going to feel off. Like, think about the days that you do skip your routine. You're like, oh, I feel all off. I'm not centered. I didn't get my workout in, and now I'm feeling anxious about the presentation, and I'm feeling off because I didn't do my daily routine. So stick to that. Okay, number 9 and 10, although it's post presentation, it's equally as important. Number 9, schedule reflective time immediately following your presentation. It should not take you very long at all, but you're going to feel vulnerable. You're going to be done. You're like, I killed that presentation. I did really well. There's just one thing I would change. Maybe there's 2 things I would change or do differently. Just ask yourself, what went well? What would you do differently? Write down 3 things for each. What went well? 3 things. What would you do differently? And when you write down what you would do differently, it doesn't mean that you did poorly. It just means, if I had come up with a stronger outline with more bullet points, I would have been able to keep my train of thought easier. And I would have been, sweating less. I would have been less overwhelmed. I was really overwhelmed about that. Next, I'm going to have more bullet points, or maybe next time I'm going to have less words on the paper because I was distracted by all the words on the paper. And I kept thinking I had to read from it. So it can be like you killed the presentation, but what's one thing that you would do differently to help you level up next time? You want to write this down in a place that you can keep it and you can go back and look. So next time you're doing that presentation, okay, I forgot. Like it could be a month later, it could be 2 weeks later. And how much happens? We are so busy. So much happens in a 2-week period that you forget. So now you can go look back. Yes, I am going to have a better outline. Yes, I am not going to wear a dress because I know I asked the right questions and I know that we're going to be sitting in high chairs on a riser. And if I wear a dress, it's going to be uncomfortable for everybody. Number 10, last one, feedback from trusted sources. Ask for feedback, but make sure they're trusted sources. Make sure it's people who know what you were trying to accomplish. So just asking your friend at work, oh, how'd you do? They might give you some honest feedback that's interesting, but you might want to talk to somebody who knows. I'm working on my presenting skills. Did I trail off at the end and people couldn't hear what I was saying? Did I put my hand in front of my mouth? Well, I don't know why I'm doing that. You guys can't see me. Did I put my hand in front of my mouth so people couldn't hear me? Was I projecting? So just ask somebody who's trusted. Did I connect with the audience? I was working really hard on that. Now, a bonus tip here is to ask those sources beforehand. I, for some odd reason, can't do that. But if you can, do that. I can't, because then in my head, I'm like, I feel like I'm performing for them. That's totally something I should probably talk to my therapist about. But if you can ask them beforehand, hey, these are the 3 things I want to accomplish. Will you let me know if I succeed in those areas? Either way, whether you ask them before or not, you can ask them after and ask for the advice and then ask questions. So if you get something, you're like, ouch, that hurt. Ask a lot of questions to see where they're coming from. You may realize, I don't really agree with what they said and their reasoning makes no sense. So I'm going to leave that. Or you may take it. All right, my friends, this was really fun. This is 10 tips that you could implement. These are easy to implement, time consuming. There's a commitment that you need to make to do these. But if you are somebody who is high achieving, which I know you are, and you suffer from things like anxiety, self-doubt, imposter syndrome, these 10 things are going to help you. Now, we didn't talk about what the presentation, how to structure the presentation, how to land a joke, no, I'm not doing that. I want to help you with your mindset. These are easy tips that you can implement so you can get out of your own way and unlock your potential and show people how good you really are. All right, my friends, until next week. Also, before you stop this, if you know somebody who is like you, high achieving and wants to deliver incredible presentations, but sometimes confidence gets in your way, anxiety, self-doubt, imposter syndrome. You know someone like that, please send this to them. My goal is to help as many women as possible shine in the workplace.